Alright, today we're back on task with the Epic Game Store. I was originally intending to either cover the hashtag Twitch is over trend or the ESA data leaks and the rest of that story, but I'm fresh off the heels of my The Downfall of Twitch video, and though there are plenty of new events in the past few days, I expect there to be many more over the coming weeks as the meltdown picks up speed. Because of that, I'll hold off on covering anything further for now, otherwise every other video would be a new set of things that Twitch is screwing up, and that would get very old very fast. Instead, today I would like to focus on the Epic Store because Tim Sweeney has just confirmed something that might seem insignificant at first, but on the contrary is entirely unacceptable. I don't think I need to reiterate all the historical reasons why PC gamers hate the Epic Store. From feature list over to timed exclusivity, there are a number of different things contributing to the atrocious reputation of the platform. But to build enough context for this video, I would like to focus in on exclusivity as a concept to set the stage. Exclusivity isn't unique to the Epic Store by any stretch. Microsoft and Sony have been competing for exclusive titles since the dawn of consoles, and on top of that, most major publishers have their own launcher, which houses first-party titles. Origin for EA is the only avenue to play a decent chunk of their games on PC. Bethesda has its own launcher as well, and there is a long list beyond that, but the point is, first-party titles made and financed by a publisher in partnership with their personally owned or contracted studios are often subjected to exclusivity, and most gamers understand and accept that. The Epic Store, however, has taken an entirely different approach. Rather than making their own games, though they do have a few games, such as the blockbuster Fortnite, and have made a claim that more financing is being allocated for future first-party projects, the vast majority of games on their store are built by third-party developers, and through a contractual obligation motivated by financial incentives, become time-gated to only be offered on Epic, and this is a new practice in the world of PC gaming. To briefly summarize a few examples here, games like Metro Exodus were poached just a few weeks before launch, and while Metro Exodus, one of the first examples to take place, honored Steam pre-orders, it goes downhill from there. Games like Phoenix Point were poached despite having been previously advertised as a Steam game, and in that instance, a refund was issued to whoever wanted it. Then a game like Shenmue 3 was poached. Again, a crowd-funded project, much like Phoenix Point, advertising Steam copies to financial backers, but this time, refunds were denied for backers who supported the campaign, expecting the ability to play on Steam, which had been specifically advertised. Eventually, as a result of increasingly severe backlash, Epic themselves offered refunds, but what we see is a clear progression here. First, a game is poached but honors pre-orders on Steam, then a game is poached but offers refunds, and eventually a game is poached while they try very hard not to refund anyone. So what is next? Poaching a game and just stealing the money? Forcing you to use their platform retroactively in breach of previous advertising, or you lose your deposit flat out? It really isn't out of the question at this point. This brings us to the present situation. Borderlands 3 is a massive upcoming title, and though there is a significant amount of controversy surrounding the game's developer and publisher at the moment, I'm working on a video discussing that very topic in the background with a source that has verifiable information about the Submato situation for anyone who's familiar. The game is still on track to be a very large event for the industry. This is where things get a little bit subjective. Some players simply don't care about being first or quickly maxing out characters in new video games. There is a very large group of players that either do not care to try and race to the finish line or feel any desire at all to obtain gear quickly right from the very first moment. But on the opposite end of that same spectrum, there is a large group of players that do absolutely love the clean slate, the level playing field, and they greatly enjoy the fresh release of new games. I am one of those players, and most of the other gamers that I know, while perhaps not as passionate as me about the subject, at least find an increased sense of enjoyment in the idea of being there at the very beginning, and starting at the same time as everyone else. This is one reason why games like Rust or Path of Exile remain so popular. Both of these games have economy resets with large content patches alongside, and it replicates the excitement of everyone starting from scratch and individuals who previously might have struggled being set up with a true chance at success, a real level playing field. This really comes down to a competitive mindset. Some players view games as a race or a competition, and with such a mindset comes an emphasis on being able to play from the very first moment possible, especially when a game does not have economy resets and when a major AAA title that will likely be played for years to come is being first launched. That is a moment that comes only one time and can have a lot of value to certain players. Now we arrive at preloading. Preloading is a fairly common practice nowadays in the age of digital distribution. Games are typically available to be downloaded in advance of the actual launch, and that allows everyone who wishes to participate in those first few moments to be prepared and ready. The Epic Store originally launched without the ability to preload games, but more recently it has claimed in its own roadmap that preloading is now a supported feature. This is just one of the features and reasons why people hate the store, by the way. It is a completely inadequate platform that lacks even basic quality of life functions because their priority is not the consumer, it is developer interest with the desire to force users to adopt the platform or miss out on games for an extended period of time, but that's beside the point. Preloading is now a self-professed feature for the Epic Store, but when asked about the ability to preload Borderlands 3, Epic CEO Tim Sweeney said the following: "I'm sorry, we won't have support for preloading in the Borderlands release timeframe. This means that they are deviating away from their own inadequate and shameful roadmap by not even providing the few features that they previously claimed to have completed for one of the largest games of the year." This is already bad enough, but the issue is exacerbated when we consider that Epic Games has made a deliberate effort, after a successful endeavor I might add, to ensure that they are the only PC platform that is able to distribute Borderlands 3 for the first 6 months. By doing this, in combination with the fact that they are now deviating from their own list of supported features and roadmap completions, they have taken away the ability of PC players to participate in that truly level playing field. And again, some gamers might not care at all, but others absolutely do. The ability to preload, as far as I can tell, is still intact for consoles, facilitated by Microsoft and Sony. So what we see here is a clear situation in which the Epic Store is negatively impacting its users that they are forcing to utilize their inferior platform. Even so, this might all be forgiven if the attitude of both Epic and some of their newest partners took the form of anything other than a condescending train wreck. Epic claims to be facilitating a better standard for the industry, but that better standard apparently involves taking away the ability of competitive players to participate in the first few glorious moments or even hours of a major game release because of their own incompetence. Not only that, but we can see that the sentiment towards gamer frustration with being forced to use a platform that is undeniably and substantially inferior to Steam or Uplay or pretty much any other launcher on the market has turned sour, which leads to increasing animosity. Ooblets, an indie game from Gumberland Studios, is one of the latest examples in terms of exclusivity, but as we examine the ever-advancing progression, it is important to take their tone into consideration. Ooblets released a statement on their newly signed exclusivity agreement that is a giant middle finger to their audience. The post is intentionally crafted to be sarcastic, make fun of any displeasure with their decision, and degrade those that prefer not to use the Epic Store. The resulting backlash was immediate and rather severe. There was even an instance of falsified screenshots circulating which alleged an Ooblets developer said something extremely inflammatory, but that was in fact a fabrication. This prompted Epic to release a statement of their own which took a similar stance, albeit void of sarcasm and derogatory jokes. The statement outlines how Epic is making the industry better and how issues resulting from their business practices are a product of gamers themselves. This yet again entrenches them in the position of altruistic benefactor to developers, and the ignorant gamers just can't see it yet, so their concerns are irrelevant. But that logic is rapidly deteriorating. Epic effectively had two choices. First, they could launch a store, pour resources into making it a better platform than Steam for all parties involved, with a slowly building user base of dedicated fans and customers, or they could launch a pile of garbage and try to force as many people as they possibly could to use their pile of garbage, focusing on speed rather than quality. They quite obviously opted for the latter. On top of this, they have put consumers through the ringer when it comes to shifting release versions from one advertised platform to another. They have now failed to deliver a feature firmly marked on their roadmap as supported, and they are fostering a combative atmosphere between gamers and developers that would not exist if they were not intentionally harming the experience of players by forcing them to use a substantially inferior platform. This leads me to a very important question, and also it's not rhetorical, I am genuinely curious. The Epic Store cannot handle preloading, apparently, and yet it is perfectly equipped to handle the strain of potentially millions of players smashing the download now button all at the same time. These may be entirely disconnected principles, I'm not sure. I'm not a software engineer and cannot factually tell you what is involved with these type of game launch cycles, and Tim Sweeney's explanation is that during Fortnite events, they handled peak traffic of over 10 million users. However, Fortnite events involve player accounts that already have the game downloaded, and this would be a download blitz with a massive file size all at the same time, which in my eyes would be alleviated somewhat by a preloading option. I cannot say for sure what the exact reason behind a lack of preloading would be. It is undoubtedly rather severe, or I cannot imagine Epic would allow it to happen. They are already marinated in scandal and bad press, but it just goes to show that the Epic Store is an unfinished, shoddy piece of trash that is being forced down the throat of PC gamers despite the obvious inadequacy of the storefront. Long story short, if you want to play Borderlands 3 right from the start, that sucks because you just can't. It also sucks because unless you want to wait 6 months for it to come out on a platform that isn't functionally equivalent to a roadkill piece of pepperoni, you must use the Epic Store. And yet, the narrative persists that Epic is making the industry better. We can't let them get away with that because it isn't true. That's it for today. This was not quite as in-depth as my previous few segments. I'm working on another video behind the scenes with a much more detailed approach, but I want to resume general industry coverage in the meantime because it's been a little bit too long since I was doing that. Tons of links down below if you want to support, but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. Thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.